In A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, Marley gives the following scolding remark to Ebenezer Scrooge. Business. Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. This passage denotes the importance of putting humanity and charity over ourselves and our work, not neglecting our work, but learning to prioritize our fellow man. Father Jonathan, how does this message line up with the reasons we celebrate Christmas as Christians, and what might the whole church today be able to learn from this message?
I think one of the things that we forget just in our contemporary society is that the nature of Christmas and the nature of giving, it wasn't about excess or acquisition. It was about the gifts of mercy, of charity, of benevolence. It was about the things that we can do for others, particularly others who are in need. It wasn't about just about what I could give or what I could get. There was rationale behind it. It was for those who needed it. And I think that's something that perhaps we've lost in the commercialization of the season.
Yeah, that's a good word. Good word. Makes me think of the cartoon When Santa Claus is Coming to Town, because that is the children he was giving presents to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good movie. That was far more sudden than I expected it.
Ooh,
hey guys!
Christmas
Oh, yeah. Welcome to the Whole Church Podcast Christmas edition. I think we may have done one other Christmas episode ever. I tend to ignore holidays when we do this. It's just easier because too many people argue about holidays. But that's also sort of the point of the show. So today, we're here with people from various traditions to talk about how we do Christmas differently. And we're going to talk a little bit about the past, the present, and future of Christmas. So I am Joshua Knoll, currently Lutheran. I am, of course, here with the reason for most seasons, TJ Tiberius One Blackwell. How's it going? Welcome to your show.
Thanks.
Yeah, TJ is currently part of the Pentecostal Church. We are here with Father Jonathan Resmini of Holy Trinity Orthodox Cathedral, Greek Orthodox Cathedral in Uptown Charlotte. He's been on several times for us. Good to have you again, Father Jonathan.
Thank you.
Also here with Professor Chris Moreland. He is a devout Catholic as well as a professor of religion at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. I was trying to, I don't know, my brain was combining UNCW with the full word and it just came out weird.
It's quite all right.
Yeah. Word fumbles. That's what people want on podcasts this Christmas. We're also here, of course, with the one and only Dr. Peter Beck. He is a pastor of a Southern Baptist church in the Charleston area. I'm doing great today, guys. He also, he's also a professor of New Testament and theology and various other things at Charleston Southern University. Author of a book that we had recently on I'm trying to remember, is it The Dark Night of the Soul or Long Dark Night of the Soul?
The Dark Night of the Soul, you're correct.
Yeah, which I recently just gave to one of my uncles. So we're rounding this out, several different traditions, several probably varieties of thoughts around how we should do Christmas, and it'll be a fun time.
Yeah, and if you appreciate what we're doing with a Lutheran and a Baptist and a Pentecostal and a Catholic and a Greek Orthodox priest all coming together to discuss Christmas, you may enjoy either our What is the Whole Church podcast or diverse church t-shirt designs, and you can use the promo code Christmas at checkout for $5 off. By the time this comes out, you can't get it for Christmas, but you can get it for Christmas, you know? So that's already, we're losing money on the shirt, honestly. You should probably get it, But check us out on the Honest Podcast Network website. Links below. Check other shows out that we like to like. And if you feel like supporting us, you can become a member of the Whole Church Podcast on Fourth Wall. One-time tip. You can get free extras. You can buy merch. Be a member. It's a good time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can get a discount for being a member and then use the Christmas promo on top of that. So I think you get like double discount.
Yeah. You can basically
play your
steal
cards
money right out of our pocket.
Yeah. which is most of our merch sales, because I just like to get stuff out there. Yeah, I'm like the opposite of Scrooge. I'm a terrible businessman.
Yeah, as a business owner, I'm horrible at it.
Yeah, we're not good at that.
I do
And,
not like taking advantage of people.
yeah. Well, and that said, it is time for some silliness. Anytime I think about not taking advantage of people, I think of silliness. Most things make me think of silliness. It's just part of who I am. It's also just impossible to be divided. When you're being as silly as I like to be, in today's it's going to be easy, it's going to be simple, it's going to be quick, maybe painful, maybe painless. I'm going to apologize in advance for listeners who like the songs that we mentioned, because it's going to happen. TJ, what's the worst Christmas song?
Honestly, hard question. I don't know. I wanted to say All I Want for Christmas as like an easy answer, but I was thinking about it, and it's just not true, but it's still fun to sing. It's just annoying to hear.
The My Chemical Romance version is tolerable.
It's great. It's
I
really
like
good.
it. Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's hard to like point at a classic, too. Auld Lang Syne, does that count?
Maybe.
It's not really Christmas. You know?
I'll throw one out and, become the bad guy first. I feel like it's a stereotype for me to say what I'm going to say. Like, I feel like, oh, of course, he's a theology podcast. He hates. I do, though. I hate Mary, Did You Know? It drives me insane. I'm like, there are correct answers to all of these questions. I don't need this song. And as someone who just I like answers, I feel like I'm just too analytical for the song. I understand, the emotion behind it, but it's like, come on. There's a song, Labor of Love, a much better song if you're looking to actually think about the feelings of Mary and what happened that day. It doesn't have to be theologically annoying. Yeah. Father Jonathan, what's the worst Christmas song?
So I worked at this grocery store in high school, and they played Christmas music nonstop for all of the end of November to December. And there was one song that the owner really liked because it was an Italian family. I'm half Italian, and it was Dominic the Donkey, the Italian Christmas donkey. And
I'm deeply curious.
That played more than one time every time I was there, because I was working an 8-hour shift, and I swear I heard it 4 or 5 times.
Well, I now have it queued up for after this because I'm just so curious. What could that be? Dr. Beck, you've taught me many things. I need to know, what is the worst Christmas songs?
Oh man, that's a hard category. And like I said, you're gonna make everybody mad somewhere along the way here. I mean, Christmas is a tough one, because it's such an emotional connection for us, right? You got your song, and the one that touches you most or whatever. So you got the songs that are really meant to be pious and make you think deep things. Those are great. And you got the other ones that are intentionally ludicrous. Maybe Dominic the Donkey. Grandma got run over by a reindeer has to line up somewhere on that side. But it's the ones that want to be serious that you have a hard time taking seriously that drive me nuts. And most of you guys may be a little too young to remember this when it was really popular. But the song about the Christmas shoes.
Yeah, Christmas shoes is a good answer. That's
I was waiting on
just
somebody
one
to say it.
Yeah, please pull up to the edge of the Grand Canyon and push.
They made us sing that at a Christmas concert in high school.
They made a movie about it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember before the movie, the trailer with the song. That's what I the first time, because at one point I liked the song, and I think it was that trailer when I realized, wait, this is actually awful. Yeah. Professor Moreland, take us home. What is the worst Christmas song?
Do they know it's Christmas time at all? Yes, they do. It's Ethiopia. They're Christian. Ethiopia isn't all deserts, and all the money they raised ended up going to a Marxist dictatorship. So I viscerally loathe that song.
I like that he had an actual real answer, and I'm just over here listen, there are answers to the song, so this one really particular thing kind of annoys me.
Yeah. See, I can't agree with you, Josh, because any song that CeeLo Green sings is good automatically.
Man.
So.
Yeah, forget about those caveats. It really messes me up.
Yeah, but I'm going to second Dr. Beck. Christmas shoes is just not Christmassy, it's demoralizing.
Just
It's
that
like
was just
Hallmark on steroids with good motives and no talent.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's brutal.
I love sad music. Like I love Passenger. There's like, but I feel like that particular song is just sad to be sad. Like if
Yeah,
you're gonna
it's
have a
too
sad
much.
song, it's got to have a point. Yeah.
You
Anyway,
just
think
feel like,
there's a
hey,
difference.
I know you're happy because it's Christmas time, but what if you weren't?
yeah.
Horrible motive. But we want to discuss the past, present, and future of Christmas traditions, starting with the past. So, what can you tell us about how the church began celebrating Christmas as we know it today? Anyone? Maybe have to be Josh. Who knows?
Well, I want to say, Dr. Beck made me buy historical theology as a textbook, so I feel like for having me buy that, it should be required that he goes first.
Oh, that's harsh,
They're just the rules.
man. Yeah, as a church historian, I don't know what Professor Moreland's background is, but as a church historian, I kind of look at the Christmas phenomena and scratch my head. Both, as a historian, I want to go, where did it come from? Obviously the debates about the dating and some of those other things are very early on. But then some of the other traditions, you almost have to wonder if that movie that came out a few years ago, The Man Who Invented Christmas, about Dickens, isn't partly to blame for some of this, because we go, well, when we think Christmas outside of our little unique circle here, we think of all kinds of things that aren't necessarily Christian per se, and are relatively later developments in terms of the evolution of thought about how do we celebrate or mark it. As a theologian on that side of the account, I'm going, the early church in the Bible anyway didn't celebrate Christmas that we can tell, right? Easter was the focus. And so you wonder how quickly we move from one focus to where we added a second day. And then it became such a point of contention over the years between various groups over which day's right. And as a historian, it's more of a phenomena for me than it's an easy answer of, well, here's how we got it. It's throw in different people from different parts of the world and say, okay, have at it. How do you want to do this? My favorite Christmas tradition has come thanks to some of my Orthodox students that, St. Nicholas, for years, it's the guy in the jolly red suit. Then they said, Dr. Beck, the real St. Nicholas, don't you? And of course, they all relished the story of Nicholas punching out, supposedly, Arius at the Council of Nicaea. Not likely to have happened exactly that way, but it's a great Christmas story. And so just like Die Hard, we need to remember it this time of year.
Yeah. Really makes you rethink Deck the Halls. What else was saying a decking, But
I wanted to just add, because I think Dr. Beck, you highlighted this. It was, I think there was, like, in the East at least, there was a gradual movement into the celebration of Christmas, and it was actually somewhat paired with like the Feast of Theophany, which is the feast where we celebrate Christ baptism. And so it's kind of the season. The 12 days of Christmas for us are the days between Christmas and the celebration of Theophany. And so it was probably not any particular in the first 3 centuries that it would have been celebrated as a separate feast, but I think its development is probably about a 4th century addition to the liturgical structure of worship in the East. And just a counterpoint, in Greece, amongst the Greek Orthodox, Saint Nicholas is not Santa Claus. Saint Basil is Santa Claus, and gifts are exchanged on the 1st of January, and not on Christmas. And there is a little practice with St. Nicholas where you put your shoes out on the 6th of December when we celebrate him. And he puts little candies and fruits and oranges and things in your shoes, not stockings. So,
Yeah, but still
love
foot
love a
related.
good orange. Yeah. Yeah. Something about feet
Yeah,
goes with this holiday. That's all I know.
it's very Pentecostal.
I have a question though. I don't know if anybody can answer this, so I'm just gonna whoever is Theophany is the day you celebrate Jesus' baptism. Is that correlate the same? That's the same date that most of the Western Church does Epiphany. Is that right?
That's right. We call it
When-
Epiphany sometimes as well, but it's not a feast celebrating like the arrival of
the wise men.
Of the wise men. No, it's for us. It's historically
baptism.
been the feast of the
Okay.
celebration of Christ's baptism. So it's
Do you have a
the
different day you
Epiphany of
celebrate the
God.
wise men, or is it
No.
just get left out?
Well, like 2 or 3 days after Christmas, it's like amongst like several figures.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I was just curious about that one. Yeah. So as far as like the history in general, one thing I have found, it seems a lot easier to disprove things that people say than it is to come up with anything solid on this is how it came to be. Like a lot of the like, oh, this was pagan. Most of the time, you can look up and be like, well, you said that was pagan, but it seems like Christians were celebrating this before that pagan day you just mentioned. So I don't know how that could happen. Like it's easier to disprove. But I haven't really been able to find anything where I'm like, this is exactly when we started Christmas trees, or whenever. Well, Christmas trees, I think you could, because I think that was German. I'm not sure. But yeah, Dr. Moreland, or Professor Moreland, do you have anything to add?
Well, we know that probably around is the earliest we could say with certainty that Christmas was celebrated would have been 235 AD, because it's mentioned by Hippolytus of Rome and Julius Africanus. So I think it's a very ancient festival in the history of the church, and the idea that it is somehow pagan or a modern creation, I don't think stands up to historical record. But I think we're going to get to that later, so I won't go any further.
Yeah, I agree. Also, for those watching / listening, not sure if TJ will be back. Their power went out just in the middle of doing this, and that's the joys of technology. So we'll see what happened. Jesus came during the darkest time of the year, assumedly. So we'll see. I do want to know, I guess maybe this will probably be more a question for Dr. Beck. Because I know my church didn't really do this when I grew up Pentecostal in TJ's church. But do churches that don't really follow the liturgical calendar still celebrate Advent? I know church I grew up didn't really, but...
Yeah. Well, again, representing Southern Baptist in our own little weirdness, as well as my own weird version of Southern Baptist, Josh, that you kind of mix and match a lot of little things in from the sides. I would say, even though the free church in general, Pentecostals include wherever TJ might be at the moment, we'll invoke his name. We are supposedly anti-liturgical. Anytime you do anything more than once, it becomes a habit, and then it becomes tradition. And so, while we don't necessarily have a liturgical calendar, most Baptists, and I know most free church folks, have some sort of traditions connected to what we do at Christmas. My church, where I'm presently at, we've done the Advent season a couple times intentionally to turn attention back to what the candles represent. And then, we won't necessarily do it the next year, but, heaven forbid we kill our Christmas Eve service, because that's on the calendar that has been since Jesus walked the earth. So we do sort of liturgical things. Every Baptist pastor I know does at least a Christmas sermon, if not a Christmas sermon series. And so we kind of have an informal, liturgical calendar there as well. Then throw in the fact that we really make it convoluted, because we also do Mother's Day, Father's Day, 4th of July, and all the other, homegrown holidays. So we are, in one sense, de facto more liturgical than most free church people want to admit. But I like the Advent season, and I like using the candles as a reminder. I'm just kind of, as the church tradition guy here, going, I'm anti-church tradition sometimes. I just don't like doing it every year, just to keep it fresh and vital in people's minds and memories. But I know lots of folks who either do the calendar, where they, this month we're doing this week we're doing that. They do the candles, or they've got some variation of it. First little church I pastored was 25 people. We didn't have the candles. Then they did bring them out eventually, but we never burned them, because you don't want to have, fire in the building. But doggone it, you knew that the manger scene, the nativity set, was going to come out around the 1st of December and was going to be there up until Christmas Day. And then somebody removed it in time for, even though we didn't celebrate it, for Epiphany. And then someday the pastor made a comment, I won't tell you his name was, that, the wise men would not have been there when the whole shepherd thing took place the night of the birth. And so one year, the wise men moved across the room as though they were on the way to the nativity scene. And then the next year, somebody stole the baby Jesus, and the pastor was forever blamed for that.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize until last year. This is to tell you how much the Pentecostal church I grew up didn't celebrate Advent. I thought Advent was just like the fancy word for this is officially Christmas time. Yeah, I didn't realize till like last year it was like, oh, the anticipation for Christmas. And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot more sense why people fast. I'm like, well, I get the whole fasting for Lent, but why are y'all doing it for Christmas? Now, it clicked, but it took me a long time to get there. Okay, so moving on without TJ. In the present, so Christmas past, Christmas present. How do each of our churches celebrate Christmas Day? I know Dr. Beck was talking a little bit about his church already, but we're just going to go through. Father Jonathan, I've been to your church once, but I have not been during Christmas time. So what's a Christmas Day look like at the Greek Orthodox Church?
So, like for us, we do celebrate like a nativity season, Advent season, and so for us, it's a whole period, like a process of preparing for it. We do fasting and all of that. So it actually starts for us November 15th, and we do serve like a liturgical service every day until Christmas Day. And so we'll do, and then there's big feast days along the way for particular saints that are celebrated, and then we're all fasting to some degree from meat, dairy, oil, fish, alcohol, all of that for that period of time. And then our Christmas, we celebrate a vesperal or an evening divine liturgy on Christmas Eve. And preceding that, we do a special service that come out of the monastic tradition called the Royal Hours, with psalm readings and things at the beginning of the day. And then in the evening, we do liturgy. And then the next morning, we do liturgy again. So for us, it's coming together in worship, but ultimately it's about receiving what we believe is the body and blood of Christ through the Eucharist. And then from there, we break the fast after we have the liturgical services. And so that's when people go off and have their turkeys or lambs or whatever Greek people, their type of thing.
Really interesting. Don't tell my wife anything about that November 15th thing, though. I'm using the fact that we now are liturgical with Lutheran as my excuse that the Christmas tree can't come up till December. I don't like anything Christmas before Thanksgiving. Bugs me.
My argument for people when I can start listening to Christmas music is so it's not on the 15th because there's another feast in between. It's the feast of the entrance of the Virgin Mary into the temple. The tradition holds that she was brought to the temple when she was 3 years old. So there's a feast day on November 21st. On that day, we start singing the liturgical Christmas hymns. So from then, because we're singing the liturgical Christmas hymns, then I can listen to Christmas music. So it's not the 15th, it's the 21st.
I could handle 21st. I prefer the first just because it just gets so repetitive, on this Christmas. Mariah Carey, I don't want to hear that many days.
Coming out on Halloween.
Yeah, too much. Professor Moreland, curious, what does your church look like? I know you are not the priest per se, but when you go to your service, what's going to look like Christmas Day?
So Christmas Day, it depends, like at least from what I've personally found. Your experience may vary in other parishes and other dioceses, that the Christmas Day Mass is usually not as a big deal as the Christmas Eve Mass, particularly the tradition of going to midnight Mass. So a lot of times people will privilege that. They'll do their thing at home on Christmas Eve. They'll rouse themselves to go to midnight Mass. They'll do Mass from like 12 to 1, 12 p.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning. And then they'll go home, sleep, and then start Christmas the next day. I honestly, personally, do not know a lot of Catholics that wake up at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock on the 25th of December, get out of their houses and go to Mass. It's But again, experiences may vary. And of course, currently what we are in is the liturgical season of Advent. 4 weeks. We just celebrated Gaudete Sunday, which is where one of the only 2 times of the year where the pink vestments get to come out, or the rosé vestments, if you want to be more specific. So yeah, Advent is extremely important. And I think it's parallel, Father Jonathan, to what you all call your nativity fast. Is that correct?
That's right.
So it is a penitential and somber season that I actually, strangely enough, very much enjoy in an odd way.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a fan too. I
really like it.
Yeah, having us been Lutheran just about 2 years now, I guess. It's pretty much. I think it's the same as the Catholic Church, as far as I can tell, for Christmas stuff. Anyway, but having some of these songs recontextualized, realizing there's a difference between Advent songs or hymns and Christmas hymns, and that's where "O Holy Night" has quickly became. I'm like, oh, this is actually one of my favorite hymns because now I understand why we sing it when we sing it. And
do you use purple vestments or blue?
It's a good question. I can't tell sometimes, and I'm afraid to ask. Like, is that purple or blue? I don't. And unfortunately, I have to do a lot of times. I have to do church online because I work most Sundays, so I just kind of listen. And then Christmas Day, usually the weekend after Thanksgiving, I can go. So I see the first Sunday of Advent, and then Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, I end up being able to go a little bit then. And sometimes I use it as an excuse to not have to be with my giant family crowd the whole time because I need a little bit of a break, and no one can tell me not to go to church. So there we go. Dr. Beck, what's your church going to look like? Christmas Sunday, Christmas Day, whenever we have a service for that.
Yeah. Again, because that's coming up here soon on us, isn't it? With the holiday being at the end of the week.
Oh yeah.
So for us, coming the 21st will be my Christmas service. And because, again, we're low church, we kind of keep it. I don't say low key in the sense that it's not serious, but there'll be a little hint at, American traditionalism when it comes to, I guarantee I've not seen the song set yet, but I guarantee there'll be a traditional, Silent Night or one of those. It comes on a midnight clear or whatever. But for us in our current church situation, because we're not big, we don't have the fancy flags and banners that some Baptists bring out at Christmas. We've got the Christmas tree on the stage with the Chrismon decorations on it. You walk in, it's kind of festive feeling. There's the little flowers all around the room, the poinsettias. For our church currently, the big thing for them historically has been long before I got there, again, as I laughed at a little bit ago, is the Christmas Eve service. I mean, a big deal at our church for years and years. They had a huge turnout for a Christmas Eve service, typically not at midnight, thank goodness. Typically at 6 or 7 o'clock, so that people go home and celebrate, those who do their Christmas stuff on the eve. But very often we'll mix it up a little bit. This year we're doing a very low-key, casual kind of service where it's more meant to be reflective. We're going to go with entirely acoustic service, dim the lights, candles. And what I use when I get up to do my homily or my sermonette, so to speak, is usually I try to focus on what is the gospel and how the Christmas story fits into it. Because I've been convinced, I know it's one of your later questions about commercialization. I think sometimes we Christians, at least in our tradition, have so belittled the meaning of Christmas that we forget that the baby came to die. And so I want to make sure, however I do it, that they get that connection between the first Advent, the crucifixion, and of course, our anticipation of the second coming one day soon, hopefully. And so my tradition personally is always to take it back to the gospel as clearly as I can, whichever form of the service we do that particular year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you heard the album? I think it's a whole play too, but it's "Behold the Lamb of God." It's like Andrew Peterson.
So. Okay, yeah,
yeah. I didn't know about. I was actually listening to the Russell Moore podcast like last week or something, and then he talked about it, and I got that album out, and I was like, oh, this is like the entire Bible, but from the lens of Christmas. It's so good. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So since CJ's not here, the Pentecostal church my parents go to are going to be pretty much the same as Dr. Beck's. Weirdly enough, just because their church is a little bit different, the two things I do know that will happen, they will have one person who felt the call to have a single performance. Basically, they're going to do like a solo song because they wanted to, I think. You know, and then you will they actually do scripture reading back and forth, kind of like a liturgical reading. I don't think they call it liturgy, but that's definitely where they pulled it from, because they actually did come to a point where they see the value in having one of the members come up and be able to read, and it allows a little bit more participation. So I think that's always kind of cool that they started doing that. So yeah, so that's covering the bases. I think most of present Christmas. Of course, we have to talk about how grumpy should we be. The kind of Christians who listen to Christian podcasts, who are a little bit more involved, tend to be really grumpy about certain things around Christmas. You know, songs we don't like, Christmas shoes, Mary Did You Know, some of the commercialization. Super ironically, just stereotyping myself as much as possible, I am getting my dad for Christmas a book that's literally the divine commodity. I think you can kind of read between the lines what the book's about. How grumpy should we be? I'll let Dr. Beck go first this time. How grumpy should I be, Dr. Beck, about Christmas and commercialization and bad songs?
Maybe it's just me, but I think there's enough grump out there in the world already in a lot of cases.
I don't know. It might be my calling.
Yeah.
I feel really
I'm often accused of being a curmudgeon. So, I mean, I embrace that, generally speaking. But, you know, I take the stand, whether it's this holiday or whether it's Easter and some of the weird things that we've added to the Easter, you know, bunny rabbits and eggs and all the, in one sense, anything that gives us an opportunity to talk to either our children, our church members, somebody at the store or at the grocery, you know, waiting for a waitress or whatever, gives us a chance to talk about these things, I think is a good opportunity. You know, maybe that's the apologist in me wanting to come out, but you know, what was it, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when so many Southern evangelicals got in an uproar over, you know, stores were not allowing their employees to say Merry Christmas anymore. They could say Happy Holidays or, you know, Merry Xmas. And back then I was blogging still, and I wrote a pretty grumpy blog, not about them taking out, you know, but the fact that we get so upset about it that we don't even know what it means. You know, I pointed out in that blog way back then that holiday is holy day. If somebody wants to use that language, let's embrace it and talk to them about what it means. Or, you know, Merry Xmas. Yeah, I'd prefer you say Christmas, but the Puritan in me says I don't celebrate Mass, so I don't like the word Christmas. Whatever. But, you know, the X is the first letter in Christ's name in Greek. So, again, we've not taken Christ out of Christmas. I think it's given us, in modern Christians, an opportunity to dialogue with our neighbors and remind them again what this holiday really is supposed to be about. And, you know, it isn't the trees, and it isn't, you know, the Charlie Brown Christmas tree and whatnot. You know, Linus had it right. But, you know, why are we going to be upset about the fact that people are taking one of the highest, holiest days in our calendar, so to speak, and celebrating it? Even if they don't fully understand, let's take that and run with it and share the gospel with them instead.
Yeah. Yeah, we've come a long way from St. Paul saying, let me tell you about the unknown God. But yeah, I do think this year too has been particularly telling to me that lots of people, like myself, I do have to put myself in this camp, maybe just want to be grumpy. Because we're grumpy, they made red cups for Starbucks instead of Christmas cups. But then when Skillet does O Come Emmanuel, they didn't do it right. So it's like, I don't know if it's about Emmanuel or you guys just want a reason to be grumpy. Father Jonathan, any soothing words? Could you give me a good excuse to be grumpy, or am I just wrong?
I try not to be grumpy.
I need someone to justify my grumpiness.
I'm sorry, I can't do that. So I'm going to tell a short story. Before I became a priest, I was in Atlanta, and I was serving at the parish, the cathedral in Atlanta, as a pastoral assistant, youth director. But I also was the guest master of the Metropolis building, which is where the bishop resided. And when I was the guest master, we had a traveling preacher who he's called the Iorokirix, the itinerant preacher of the Metropolis, would go around to different parishes and preach. but he would come by and stop as a home base at the cathedral and Metropolis. And we were out to dinner one time, walking, and he said to me, Jonathan, I was Jonathan at the time, Jonathan. And I go, yes, Father. He goes, do you believe in the resurrection? And I said, of course I believe in the resurrection. And he said to me, well, one could be fooled with the sour look that you seem to always have on your face. Please be joyful. And ever since he said that, like, he's right. Like if we're celebrating the incarnation of our Lord, that the heavenly God came began to live humanly, and that is what set the trajectory for our salvation. Like, how could I not be joyful during this season? And even if people don't know, like, that's an opportunity for me to tell them. And I have a little bit of ease because, like, no one's going to think twice about the guy dressed like a priest in a cassock and a big cross and stuff, wishing them Merry Christmas. In fact, they'll probably say it back to me. It's just because I'm a little frightening with my big beard and everything. But, like, why not be joyful? Like, if my joy exudes, and people see me rejoice, and they ask me why I'm rejoicing, even in this season, even in this kind of difficult time in the world that we're living in, I can say, because the Lord has come, and we will be, and we're saved. Just, come on, come and see.
Yeah, come and see. That might be my favorite Bible catchphrase. That or how long, because that how long thing is really relatable sometimes. How long, oh Lord. Man. You made me think of, have you guys seen the movie Risen? It's weird because I think the actual takeaway of the movie, it was like an evangelical tool kind of deal where it's a Roman soldier basically trying to figure out what happened to Jesus's body. And that's what the movie's actually about. But the thing that stuck out for me is when you saw Jesus and the disciples, they were just so freaking happy, man. And I was just like, well, for whatever reason, that scene of Jesus and the disciples sitting around just smiling and having a good time just got seared into my brain. And whenever I think of, like, Jesus, I'm always like, that's my picture for some reason. It's not like my favorite movie or anything. It's just like, that's what I see. And, I joke about being grumpy. And there are plenty of things that I am grumpy about. But I do think overall, I tend to be pretty cheery. And I think that's what's interesting is I don't wear the long robe or the big cross at Chipotle, where I work. But I do have, workers who know I do this podcast. And I'll have times where they're like, we have some tough days, believe it or not, in the food industry. Sometimes you have tough days. And one of the workers will ask me, be like, is it like some kind of spiritual practice? Like, why are you so happy? And I honestly, usually, I don't know how to answer that. I'm just like, I don't know, man. I just am. And part of me wants to just be like, I got the joy down in my... But, I don't do that to people because that's annoying. But, no, I get what you're saying. I feel it. And I think more Christians should be happy and less grumpy. And even if you don't like Skillet's O Come, Emmanuel, first off, they did 2 versions just because they knew some of us were going to be grumpy. And y'all still got them. Come on. Professor Moreland, do you have anything to add about the grumpiness this time of year before we move on?
Yeah, well, I think the church in her wisdom has given us Advent as a way to actually work through our grumpiness. This is a really difficult time of the year for a lot of people. Yeah. And it can, if you are in a state of depression, if you are mourning the loss of a loved one, and so many people get sick at this time of year, a lot of people die in December, particularly the elderly. When you have the bright lights and the shininess and like the peppiness, and you feel miserable on the inside, it's almost like you're being mocked. So this is where I think Advent can be a fantastic spiritual practice for people that are grieving, that people that feel morbid, that for people that are like, it's dark out, it's cold out, and I miss my mother, I miss my father, or my grandmother is in the hospital with Alzheimer's. I think Advent's a fantastic way to process that and to sit with your grief and to sit with the fact that this is a difficult time of the year. But guess what happens? Advent ends, Christmas starts, and every single day after Christmas, it gets brighter outside. It gets brighter outside. And I think that
if you're in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah. And it is, I think it is very sacred that we acknowledge that this is not always a joyful time for people. Joy will come, both real emotional joy and theological, spiritual joy, but it's delayed. It is delayed. It's not going to happen. And it's okay, I think, for people to maybe forestall some of their joy until the actual day of Christmas and the season after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'll give you one of me and TJ's disagreements and then talk about the 12 days of Christmas for myself a little bit. TJ and I, one of our biggest disagreements, I really like something about what I call the American liturgical calendar, where we have Halloween, and I think it's really cool that it coincides and we're thinking about death and stuff, and I like that goes into like the Day of the Dead and we're thinking about this stuff, and we have that time to grieve. And then you have Thanksgiving, and you celebrate the things that you're thankful for, and then you go into this season of Christmas and hope. And I actually feel like it's a nice transition, and that's why I think Thanksgiving is really important. And when you see Ghost and Santa up at the same time at the store, okay, sorry, grumpiness aside, Father Jonathan's going to get me. I like that setup. TJ's argument is really they just try to put stuff between thinking about death and then taxes in January. But that aside, the 12-day of Christmas, I actually remember I was joking with, I think it was Pastor Will. It might have been Reverend Justin, both friends of the show for those who've watched for a period of time. When I started doing like the 12 days of Christmas, I was even complaining. I was like, I actually don't like doing it. And I was only half joking. I was like, my grandparents, who both passed away now, their anniversary was New Year's Eve. So for me, like, I like to grieve during right then. And he, I wish I knew who I was talking to. They came back at me with think about Jesus' birth. Do you not think there was any period of grieving in this story where the census was happening and they had to go on the run? I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. It's not all, it is a time of celebration and joy, but that doesn't mean we get to completely separate that from the reality we live in. And learning to do both can be challenging, and it's okay if you have a year where it's not a celebration, I think, personally. Anybody else have anything to add, since, half of the people on right now are pastors? If you want to add a pastor word before we move forward, I'm okay with that. All right. Well, then, we did Christmas past, talking about traditions, where did Christmas come from? We did some Christmas present. We got through our grumpiness, and I think I technically recommended The Divine Commodity by Sky Jathani, and hopefully my dad didn't listen to this, since he's going to get his present a day after this goes out. He probably won't. It's fine. Now, Christmas future. I got a couple questions I think we could do for this. One, technology. Technology has always changed the church, even though a lot of times we like to pretend like it didn't. But like, if you took some of our arguments we hear at the church to like old pastors in like the early church, and they saw how many of them had to do with this thing called air conditioning, I think it would blow their mind. Architecture has gone a long way. We've learned a lot about physics, and that's changed how we build our churches, and whether or not we think the purpose of the church is to glory God or should be simple so that we can use our resources for other things. We're constantly growing. We're constantly changing. Technology does play a part, whether it be in art or how we build our churches or the temperature in the church, whatever. And right now, there's lots of challenges, one of which I've actually heard people using AI to write sermons, and I think we're all probably agree that that's bad. But I'm curious. I think, for the most part, the church has done a good job at weeding out the problems. But where do we think technology might help us in a way like that we'll see the church actually change with some of the advances coming out? Dr. Beck, this is a hard question, and I like to pick on you, so you can go.
Oh, great. I was hoping Professor Moreland was going to go first, but yeah, I'm sitting here dumbfounded, scratching my temple going, huh. I'm thinking you're going negative with this. I'm going to be all grumpy and, going, technology's bad. Look what it's done to the church over the last 5 years after COVID. And we've lost so many people who think you can do church online. And you want to think of good things about technology. And I don't know, maybe LED Christmas lights in the trees means our power will be lower. That's a tough one, Josh. I mean, that's not fair.
Yeah. Well, so I'll throw out some of the stuff. We've actually been wrestling with this online church thing on our show for like the last 2 months. And it started with like an actual roundtable conversation. And for me, I'm passionate about part of it because my grandfather, the last few years of his life, couldn't leave his house. And if it were not for online church, he would not have had church. So to me, I was like, oh, this is a great thing. We had a microbiome expert on during our science fair series, and he's talking about how, like, yeah, if you're not actually physically together, a lot of the benefits of sharing the bread and wine doesn't actually happen. And there's actually a physical component that makes you one. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we can't send bacteria through the internet. And then I'm like, yeah, there's a lot too. And I think technology usually does kind of cut both ways. I don't know if that just makes it harder to answer this question or if it just stalled long enough for Father Jonathan to think of an answer, but it's something.
So we're, we've seen a large uptick in people coming to faith over the last few years. We're getting dozens and dozens of people, new people every week. And since I've been here, we've added another like 200, 250 families to our community, which is, thank God, glory to God.
But also crazy.
Yeah.
I pray for you regularly.
Yeah. Well, glory to God, for all things. But a lot of them are coming, doing their explorations online and stuff like that. But for me, there is something essential about being together and worshiping together. So we do stream our services so people can watch, and we do have homebound parishioners that will be watching the services online. But I still go and visit every one of them. I still make sure that parishioners are going to see them, so that community is preserved. Because it's not just about watching and listening. That's beautiful. For some of them, they are the hymns of the church are so ingrained in their mind that even in the midst of dementia, if I start praying the hymns of Easter or praying the hymns of Christmas, they start singing along with me. So like it's deep rooted. Music memory runs deep. And prayer, and they're like making the sign of the cross and just responding to me, and know that they're receiving communion, and know that they're getting blessed with holy oil and all of that. So I would say that technology can help us in our augmentation of like how we connect with one another, but I still think that it's essential for us to be in person and communing with one another in person and receiving the sacraments together. In terms of and like the use of AI. So I'm a researcher, and so I like anytime I've ever used AI, it's just like a super Google, basically. Like I just need to consolidate research materials, or I'm like, here, just give me some quotes or something like that I can look into, or something like that. And then, it's helpful. Like it is helpful because I have 12, 13, 1,400 families at times. Like it's hard for me to, and it's me and one other clergyman that's full time. And so it's just not enough time to do like heavy research. But if I can get pointed in the direction of what books I'm supposed to read, I can get a sermon done pretty quick. So I do see the benefit in as a tool for research, and then also to kind of and certainly like we use social media to engage with people, and videos. I often find video engagement off if people get a video promoting an event or promoting something on that's coming up, we get better participation because they're more likely to watch a 30-second reel than they are to read an email. So we just got to meet people where they are.
Yeah. Fun tips for churches trying to use technology. Just because I do this stuff way too much. YouTube always prioritizes shorts and reels over actual videos. So if you take your sermons into like find a couple 1-minute clips, you will get literally hundreds more views on those. That's just a fun tip. But Dr. Beck, Professor Moreland, do either of you guys want to go ahead and go, or do you want me to? I have other thoughts I can just spin off to stall for you guys if you want.
I'm going to take it one step back away from AI and actually take a look at a very old technology, radio. So it doesn't obviously replace the fact, particularly if you are Catholic or Orthodox, like you need to be physically present. to receive communion, to get the very body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. Also, there's a belief in the Catholic Church that your physical presence is one of the 4 ways Christ is present in the Mass. Like the other people in the congregation and you are representing, are part of the real presence. What I will say, though, is this. It is really helpful, not as a substitute, but as a adjunct, as sort of like a supplemental material, to be able to turn on something like Catholic radio, like EWTN. And maybe you already went to Mass that day, or maybe you've already done your daily prayers, but in between going from here to Chipotle or the mall or getting your, getting gasoline, you can pray the Chapel of Divine Mercy. You can pray the Rosary. You can even hear Mass being simulcast. And, when you're in the car, you just do the responses. You won't be able to get communion. It's not the same thing. But is it better than listening to Wonderful Christmas Time or Mary, Did You Know? Yeah. So that's a way that I think you can further your, yes, or the Italian Christmas donkey, God forbid.
I'm so intrigued.
Oh, it's horrid. It's just ghastly. But yeah, I think that is a way to sort of add on to your spiritual practices. But otherwise, if you can be in church, you really should be in church.
Yeah. I like that. That was well said. Dr. Beck, are you ready? Do you need me to stall?
Josh.
I have some crazy ideas. No. Wait till you
Hang
hear
on to
about
crazy idea. Yeah. No, I'm just going to add to both what the other two have already said, in that, God has given us all these tools and resources, right? Whether we think from papyrus to paper to binding, that's technological advances. And used well, those have been to our advantage, right? Having the ability to simulcast, so to speak, as we would have called it years ago, to, stream live. I've got people in Africa who watch our services weekly, who, in one sense, we've kind of become their Bible study during their midweek ministry time, as they sit down and watch us while they're sewing furniture and stuff together for people they give into the charity. The warning, to kind of tie it back to Christmas for us, though, is that caution that all of us are aware of, regardless of our traditions, of letting the traditions and these other things become the problem, right? They become the replacement for the reality, right? We do these things to remind us of the realities, and then eventually it becomes, well, we have to do this. Again, my tradition, we must have a Christmas Eve service or it's not Christmas at our church. Have we lost why we do it for what we do? And so, that's true of all these different tools that we have available to us. Is, are we using them to further the kingdom, to improve, in our sanctification life, or have they become a life unto themselves? And so, whether it's a Christmas technology or just in general AI, take it for what God has given us, use it where we can, and realize it's imperfect. And the perfect example I always give my students of AI is that I one time AI name of my name of my first book I wrote, and said, give me a summary of Peter Beck's Voice of Faith. And it gave me a 300-word dissertation that had nothing to do or correct other than the name of me and the name of the book. And I went, guys, here's your warning. You start quoting some of these things, be careful. Now, like, Father Jonathan, before AI existed, I'd go to, the quote websites on Google. Give me a quote about the, redeeming the time. Well, here's 50 of them. Scroll. I like that one. And
yeah.
But yeah, the challenge is, isn't it? How do we embrace modernity without abandoning the antiquity of the gospel itself? And I think that's a challenge for all of us, whether in the pew or in the pulpit. How do we lead people into the 21st century or through the 21st century now without selling out the real meaning of it? And that's what we found out during COVID.
Yeah.
It was better to watch it on TV or on the computer than not have it at all. But how many people disappeared through it when they realized they didn't miss it at all?
Yeah. But, I wonder with stuff like that, though, how much it was hindering, how much it was more of a wake-up call to a problem that was already there.
Oh, yeah. I think it just
zombies in the pews.
It helps separate the wheat from the chaff a little bit.
Yeah. I also, just with ChatGPT, fun story. When I first made my account pretty early on, I was asking it to write something in my voice because I'm on a lot of podcasts. I have a Substack, and it's able to pretty well do that. The problem is now it responds to everything in my voice. So when I ask it, like, what did C.S. Lewis say about something, and I read it, and C.S. Lewis is referencing Kingdom Hearts, I'm like, I think that might be wrong. I'm not sure, but I don't think he played that video game. Other thoughts with technology, just real quick, just some of the stuff that popped in my head. I think VR, as silly as it sounds now, might actually help with church one day. That might be a thing for people who can't get out of the house, who you cripple, whatever else is going on. I could see it. I do think the online communities might actually end up prove to be a problem. I could see it becoming, because, there's a lot of divisiveness online, and people who believe really extreme things are able to find other people who believe really extreme things. And then you have more fractions. And I'm not against people talking to one another or community or free speech. It's just something I recognize happens. Lastly, the thing that I think would be cool, and of course, the Lutheran's going to point out, Martin Luther took the Bible and said, this is for the people. We have a lot of really cool technology with like Kindles and stuff now where people are highlighting and leaving notes in books and you're able to see others' notes. I definitely can see churches doing that, and you being able to wake up Christmas morning, read your Christmas passage, and you're like, oh, wait, here's this other family in our church, and here's what they said about this passage, or hear what stood out to them. And I think that could be really cool. So maybe less actually the church, physical church, but I could see the church body really benefiting from something like that. So that's just, some of my quick thoughts. Last thing, we're going to play a little bit of a what-if game for Christmas future. Well, Father Jonathan, since you're the mystic of the group, I feel like imagination is your realm. I'm going to let you go first to buy us all time. I need you to imagine for me. In the future, we have a giant ecumenical Christmas service. Lutherans, Pentecostals, Baptists, Catholics, Orthodox, we're all showing up together. Maybe it's not Christmas Day because I think that could cause some problems with the Eucharist and such. But we're having a giant ecumenical Christmas service. What would need to be included? What would we need to leave out? Since I kind of already said Eucharist, I know that's probably one that wouldn't be able to have at that kind of meeting. But what do you think we could do?
Well, that's a relatively challenging question because there are some Orthodox Christians that would be wildly against that. I don't want to disregard that. I think if anything, we could have we do have ecumenical conversations across the board. I was I'm on the Mass Council of Churches, like the Massachusetts
maybe easier to a Christmas
division of the World Council of Churches. And so I would do stuff together with them. I think that what we've done here at the cathedral before in the past is we invited all of our area churches, the other Orthodox churches, the Oriental Orthodox churches, and also our surrounding Protestant churches, the Methodist Church across the street, the Church of Christ down the street, and just come together and share what is a traditional music of your faith tradition. I think that was an opportunity for us to be together and invited conversation. I think just the idea of worship, because there's a prohibition against worship. People interpret different ways in the Orthodox Church, and because of that, we have to be mindful. Like just a couple of weeks ago, the big uproar in Orthodox internet bros was that the Pope and Patriarch Bartholomew and several other hierarchs of the East got together and had a conversation, and they were at each, the Pope was present at a worship service. So that's heresy. That's not heresy. You don't know what we're talking about. It's a big, it's a big conversation that's been going on. So those are, we're relatively close in tradition and with the Catholics, and that's a big to do. So as we move out from historical Christianity to some more contemporary expressions, it might be hard. So but it's always good to get together to celebrate one another, and I think if you could find a way to do it that was less worship and more just
Christmas party. All right, giant white elephant, here we go. Okay, no, that's actually really helpful and insightful, because I didn't know a lot of that. I just kind of know. I know that there's touchy things, especially around Eucharist and stuff. I didn't know worship service in general can also be kind of a issue with that. Man, I've made Dr. Beck go first too many times, so he'll go last this time. Yeah, because the first shall be last for the last question. Professor Moreland, Yeah.
Father Jonathan has, as usual, led to some great conversations and led to what I wanted to say about this, which is, yes, there in the Catholic Church, you also must be very careful. There are very explicit things that you can and cannot do when it comes to shared prayer and worship with other denominations. It's the easiest to do it with the Orthodox, and we've had the most practice with it for obvious reasons. However, even there are some things that we are not entirely reunified, so there are some things that will have to be skipped. With the Protestants, it can get even more tricky, particularly because of because of different beliefs in the Eucharist. I like the idea, though, of an ecumenical sing-along or performance or pageant where everyone either does a reading or chants a prayer or sings something that to them epitomizes the Christmas spirit, and maybe you all have a little party afterwards. So maybe there's like a thing where there is like a more reflective side, and then after that brief thing, maybe you've got 4 different acts or something. Then you all go and party together, and it should open up some interesting conversations. That could work.
Yeah, I dig it. All right, Dr. Beck, we rented out for several thousand people the community center in downtown Charleston, and we're having an ecumenical Christmas gathering. What can and cannot happen at this gathering?
No, I'm going to echo both of the other brethren, because I think they're right in a sense, because just like there's concerns from the Orthodox or from Rome about, oh, can we do this, and what do we have to give up to do it? And of course, there are things they're not willing to give up. Protestants are just as, I don't want to say dogmatic in the bad sense of the word, but dogmatic in the good sense of the word. I'll let a Orthodox come to my church and lead us in prayer on a Sunday. I don't know that I'd quickly would be, run out of the rails out of town on rails if I let him preach for me on Sunday. But, if we were to, advocate for some sort of Christmas fellowship gathering, or because you think about it, set aside our denominational differences or, our traditional differences, we have a common vernacular. We read the same Bible, albeit in slightly different variations, but we're coming after the same gospel. We, at least in our context here, in southern part of the United States, we have very similar traditions. I mean, I tried to grow a beard like Father Jonathan, and I got grief from some of my sweet old ladies who, kept reminding me week after week that they sell things to clip those. So after I got down to about here, I quit and said, okay.
Are there pictures, though? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, there were a few. That and my ugly Christmas suit I wore one year. But I think if we made it more, we some cringe at the idea of it, an ecumenical, the word, but what do we have in common? And we have one Lord, one Savior, ultimately, big picture in the grand sense, one universal church, the church united, the church invisible. And we focus on those things and highlight again our commonalities. I think we could do it. Now, are people going to get upset? Yeah. They also hated Billy Graham 60 years ago for trying the same thing. So, have we come any further than the 1950s and 60s where Billy Graham was accused of not being Christian because he invited the Orthodox to help him reach a community in LA or whatever? Yeah. That I can't answer for, not as certainly as I wish we could answer that one.
Yeah. I know we always make the joke at the end of our episodes about Francis Chan being on, but I know he's actually been at some Catholic functions and not, preaching at a church or anything, but actually, I think they're more like conventions that he was at, that he was able to, reach out and do something. And I'm one of those that's like, something's better than nothing. So I'm all for us getting together, doing a gift exchange, maybe a Bible study. So there's not like someone giving a homily and we don't have to argue over who's preaching. Singing some carols. I definitely like everybody singing carols from their tradition. I think that sounds really cool. Especially, I'm still learning the carols from Lutheran tradition because, being Pentecostal, we just listened to like whatever was new and sounded the most exciting. And when Lutherans say we're going to listen to a new song, they mean something from like 100 years ago. And I'm like, oh, this is not what I meant by new. So I'm still learning stuff and I enjoy it. I definitely enjoy any reason to get together. I think personally, and maybe I'm calling some people out, but I think also it would be good to ask everybody to dress as plainly as possible. Because I think sometimes when people just know you're from a certain tradition, They don't want to hear what you have to say. And I think it'd be fun if we had our get together and people didn't know. Obviously you knew the people from your church, but you weren't going to. Father Jonathan, I think it doesn't matter what you wear. You just look Orthodox, man. But people might not know that Professor Moreland's
Put him in
Catholic.
blue jeans and a Harley Davidson sweatshirt.
That's true. That's where we ought to go with this.
I live in the North Davidson area of Charlotte, and so I'm with all the hipsters. So whether I'm in my robe or out of my robe, I fit in perfectly because they're like,
true.
"Yeah, you do, you man."
All the good beers in Noda too, for those wondering, and traditions that are able to drink. I personally don't condone getting drunk, but I do condone really nice craft beverages personally. Yeah, and sometimes I get slack for that, but for the most part, I think everybody, once they heard I went Lutheran, just assumed that about me, so I get away with it. TJ gets away with it less. That's on him. Oh man, yeah, but it's been fun. I always love getting to talk to each of you. I don't think we've had all three of you on together. I know Professor Moreland and Father Jonathan, we have you guys on together a few times, but including Dr. Beck has been a lot of fun, and developing these friendships, even if we're not having our Christmas get together yet, being able to fellowship in some kind of way, and technology helping us do it is just, to me, it's a huge blessing. I always love getting to see all of you and being able to do this thing that I, growing up, would have never thought was possible. I came from a family that we have some Catholics, we have some Pentecostals, and the only thing I ever heard were those Catholics aren't really Christian, or, these people, I know both of them, the only thing they had in common was making jokes about Baptists in Kentucky.
We're glad to help.
Yeah, that was the one commonality. They both agreed that the reason liquor stores have that back window is because the Baptists couldn't get caught drinking. that's I don't know how true that is, but I've heard it all my life. So at the very least, sometimes perception's reality. I don't know. But one thing we do like to do before wrapping up is to ask our guests to provide a single tangible action. That's something that would better help engender Christian unity, church unity, however you want to word it. Ecumenicism, since we've used the word already. We can go multiple syllables today. What is something practical that our listeners could stop and do right now, starting with Professor Moreland? What's something they could do right now this Christmas season that would help bring the church together?
I think generally just spending time with other people from other denominations, patient and quiet listening, and non-judgmentalness at this time of the year, curiosity, those are good ways to go.
Yeah, for sure. Father Jonathan, if you had to give us a tangible action, we'll just layer up, give people options.
I would echo all of that. Just hear people's story. There's a reason that people love what they do and why they're doing it, and for many people, they've chosen the practices and the traditions that they've come from. It's not necessarily something they were born into. For some it is, but for some it's home, and just it's an opportunity to hear someone's story and what it means to them, and and don't try to listen so that you can rebut. Just try to listen, and then be open to sharing yourself as well. It's vulnerable, but it's the only way that we build relationships, and it's only relationships that can open us up to bigger things.
Oh, yeah. Amen and hallelujah. Dr. Beck, same question. Just anything practical, you think?
Yeah. Again, I would jump on exactly what both of them have said already. To genuinely listen, whether it's the person at the register at the grocery store, or in my case, because I'm in a school that is a Christian school, but half are not believers and the other half are from all kinds of different walks of life, Christianly speaking. But generally listen, such that they know that you actually are listening and care. And then the only thing I would add to both of them, they meant it, and it was in their spirit of their answer, is then to smile. Right? Smiles are infectious, literally, truly are, just like tears are. And I think too many folks think that we have this wall of stoicism up, that's the Christian way to do it. And like you were saying about the movie Risen, or the old Jesus film, or some of those others that we've done over the years, it's almost startling when we see pictures of Jesus smiling or laughing. And There are sometimes, again, he was not a sinner, and so he did not approach things the way Josh would approach things. But you sometimes just got to imagine Jesus just scratching his head going, you guys have got to be kidding me. And the only way to not crush their spirits was a smile at him as he corrected them. A smile goes a long way.
Yeah. I like the smile bit added on there. I'll throw more generally out there too. This time of year, there's a lot of good charities out. And I found, as someone who grew up in a smaller church, it's easy to find a bigger church that is doing something in the community and you are able to work alongside them. Also, you have more opportunities of church services not happening on a Sunday. So you're not like having to skip your church to check out another one. It's a good opportunity to see what other traditions are doing. This time of year in general, it's just easier. So that said, Dr. Beck, first will be last. I'm going to let you go last by having you go first again. What do we think would change if everybody did all this? We listened to one another. We smiled. We took the opportunity to get to know someone from another denomination. Maybe went to one of these charity works together. What would we see change?
I think the biggest real tangible change would be the sense, not of unity. We're not going to erase 2,000 years of debate amongst various groups in 500 years, but to realize we're talking about real people, right? Why does everybody who ever goes on a mission trip overseas come back and say that was a life-changing event? Because they got to actually meet and see and touch the people they claim to care about, and now they can. Why does the news highlight how many Americans died in a tragedy overseas? Because there was this sense of community that as soon as they said that, and I think some of the things we're talking about here would just build that sense of community that when the world looks at the church and goes, why are you all so divided? There are good reasons we're divided, but there's a lot of silly reasons we're divided also. And perhaps if the world could see us being a little more united on the key things, they would sense perhaps that they're missing out on something they feel called to be a part of instead.
Yeah. Man, I'd hate to follow that up, so I'll have Professor Moreland do it instead. Anything else you would like to add? He also would hate to follow that up.
Not at the moment. I think that took the cake.
Yeah. Father Jonathan, are we going to leave it be, or do you have anything you wanted to add?
I don't know if it's anything added. Just it's a building of relationship and seeing a person as a person, and it helps us rid ourselves of assumptions of what we expect of other persons. And a lot of times we can disagree with a lot of ideas that we think people have, and that can make us think differently about those people. But then we actually spend some time with them, and we realize that we were mistaken. And what a wonderful person! What a wonderful person made in the image and likeness of God, who stands before me. And glory to God for them.
Yeah, glory to God. Yeah. And that's sometimes I pretty much say exactly what y'all said. Dr. Beck. Whenever people ask how long we're going to do this show, sometimes I get that. How long are y'all going to do this? I'm like, well, I'm not going to act like unity is suddenly going to be achieved after 500 years of everything we've had. But yeah, it's that getting to know people. If it hasn't helped any of our listeners, which I hope it has, because enough people follow us that I hope they're not all wasting their time. At the very least, I think it has helped myself and TJ to kind of get to know you guys and some of our other guests and just go, oh yeah, these are real people. Even when we disagree with them, we're like, wow, they're great. I think TJ and I have said, in counting, we've had less than 5 people that we were like, yeah, I wouldn't want to go out and hang out with them in person. Like almost everyone we've had on, we're like, it'd be great to just go get a coffee or something with these guys. So, getting to know people truly is a blessing and changes your heart. And that's how the world changes, one heart at a time. Some other cheesy line like that, maybe. But TJ wants us to do God moments. He says we have to, and he says I have to go first. We have to talk about a place where we have seen God in recently. I'm gonna go with a challenge. I think I told you guys there's a lot going on at my work. I don't want to say anything too specific and get in trouble because, yeah, you can't say too many things about work publicly. And I've been in a spot where I'm trying to navigate some really difficult situations, and it's come up right after I decided I think I am actually going to pursue the pastorate. And it's like, yeah, this is maybe God reminded me, hey, this is what it looks like to deal in people. And I think I'm doing okay at it. So I don't think it's made me want to rethink that that calling, and more of a seeing, okay, this is part of who I am, and it's not going to be easy, but I'm just going to know where I'm going. Yeah. Dr. Beck. Well, I've had you go first too many times. You want me to go somebody else's?
I can go if you want to dismiss me quickly.
Yeah, maybe it's alphabetical. Maybe I'm just subconsciously going alphabetical, and I don't know.
There you go. No, I mean, not to promote my book, that which you mentioned earlier, but I've had many instances in the last several weeks, as the book came out on November 11th or whatever the actual release date was, where somebody will send me a message. Friends I've known for 25 years who've read the book, and one guy's comment was, "I think you saved my life." And you kind of go, okay, that had no idea he was struggling with the same things, but to be affirmed that what you did, putting yourself out there, made a difference is pretty amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And I to promote your book, since you're not promoting your book by that statement. Yeah, I actually got to talk to one of my uncles and telling him about it. He's been in the military before, and just seeing how interested he was and realizing I've never known, still don't really know what all he's going through, but there's a reason he was interested. So, yeah, that challenged me too. You never know, people in your family even. Professor Moreland, do you have a God moment for us?
Absolutely. A very dear mentor of mine just did some medical tests and everything came back great. She was a little worried. It's getting to that time of her life. She was worried that, cancer, other things might be coming up. Nope. Everything came back clear. So glory to God for that. I was praying for her. I prayed for her in advance. And now that the results have come back and they're good, I've been also making sure to give thanks.
Yeah. Praise God. That's good stuff.
Indeed.
All right. Father Jonathan. Hate to make you go first, but last is first.
So, as I mentioned, this season we do worship services every day, which has been a real blessing. Just to stand at the altar and to, pray and have communion with whoever is coming there. And sometimes it's our preschool kids, sometimes it's our elders. It's a real privilege. So I could very easily say I have to get up early every morning to do church. I am still in the phase doing this 7 years in that I get to do this every morning during this season. So it's a blessing.
Yeah, praise God. That's my other challenge. Pretty much every time I talk to Father Jonathan, he tells me something about his church, and my first thought is, that sounds exhausting, and the next thing out of his mouth is always, it's a blessing. That's my challenge. Maybe seeing more things as blessings. Being less grumpy, As Father Jonathan, Dr. Beck, they're all going to get on me for that, it turns out, so I can't be grumpy this season.
Don't worry,
I can, though, ask you guys, if you enjoyed this episode, to share it with a friend, an enemy, or a cousin. If you see the Grinch, share this episode with him. It might make his heart grow really large. Then you have to take him to a cardiac surgeon, but it's okay. It's good for him, I promise. We do appreciate the shares, though. Word of mouth is the easiest and quickest way to grow a podcast. And a lot of you guys do a great job at it, and we're thankful for you and hope you'll continue in the new year to keep sharing the show because it helps us. I'm not good at TJ's parts, guys, and I apologize. We mentioned some of the t-shirts earlier on. One of the ones I really like, I think it's called the Diverse Church or something. Not sure. It's one of my other ones. It has the whole church on the front. The back has the Irish Trinity knot, and it has part of the Nicene Creed, that Holy Catholic Apostolic, and then at the bottom says one church, one God. And, strong. We got theology, unity, all the good stuff together. and it looks really nice because Irish, you get the dark green shirt. It looks cool. Also, check out the other shows on Ozal Podcast Network. We've got Systematic Ecology. TJ and I are both on that. We're doing some Christmas stuff over there. Let Nothing Move You. You have Christian Ashley going through the Bible one chapter at a time, sort of. I think one chapter. 1 or 2 chapters at a time, or if he's in Leviticus 4 because he wants to get through it. Then, try to think. My Seminary Life. Brandon Knight. He always does something Christmas. There's something holiday over there, I promise. Go check that out. It'll be fun. We hope you enjoyed the show. Coming up, we're going to end the year, so there's still one more episode this year, guys, with Dr. Chris Hansen on open and relational parenting. It'll be interesting. We did already record that. I just don't remember it. I have a terrible memory, guys. So I'll be interested to listen to it again. We will then be kicking off the new year with Christian Ashley and Brandon Knight to talk about what's going on across the NSL Podcast Network. After that, we'll be joined by Thomas J. Orr to discuss our own views and how some of our views have changed over the years and how some have not, even though Dr. Orr persists that I do change. He's one on a few I'm just too stubborn on, it turns out. Finally, at the end of season 1, though, we will be having Francis Chan. He doesn't know about it, though, so someone tell him. This holiday season, tell Francis Chan that he's going to be on our show. Yeah, don't ask.